The communists are at it again, as I titled this. Usually I'll have some sort of take. It'll make a bunch of leftists mad. And I expected this one to make folks mad. My take on unions, but I'm right. My take on this whole thing going on right now in Hollywood with unions versus these producers and studios, and I'm right on that. I always have been. Now, you need to understand communists, you all that watch this, and socialistic people. They're generally losers outside of the champagne socialists, they're losers in different ways, but they're economic losers especially. And I say all the time that activism is generally the occupation of losers. But class struggle has always been attractive as a core tenet, I guess, if you want to call it that, of what activists that are generally communistic and socialistic dwell on. Yes, it gives them a sense of purpose. That's a big part. It doesn't require much of them. And it doesn't matter where that class struggle exists. It can be between rich and richer people as well. It's not always just people that are on any given scale, poor versus the people that are rich. This is a funny comment that I saw here. And this guy says, I'm the bourgeois. He says, I'm the enemy of the working class. Of course, you can't see past your own interests. Now, this is out of a conversation that's happening about what's going on with these studios versus these unions. Now, I've called them all chicken shits because that's what they are. You might think of that to be harsher language, but that's exactly what it is. Mainly because we're expected to put these folks on some sort of creative pedestal, right? They look at Hollywood as if the upper echelon of creativity. And I just don't seem to understand why these uber creative people are incapable of pulling their own resources together, especially the ones that have a lot of money, and even really with other elements of funding like crowdfunding has introduced just a completely different, it's changed the game. And if these people are as creative as what they think that they are, we're supposed to believe that they are, more accurately putting it, why are they not existing, number one, outside of these idiotic unions, but number two, instead of begging to the access of the resources of the studios, why aren't you creating it yourselves and seeing this newer, more economic, let's say this, economically more friendly to you guys, a world? Why aren't y'all working towards that? I know the answer. The answer is they want someone else to assume the risk. They want access to the properties that are generally going to sell. And really, the current status quo is the only way that they're going to be funded in the same capacity as they had been in previous years, because they can absorb massive losses and risk. And so that's going to always be attractive. And of course, the people that are going to be protective of the status quo, you've heard me say this a million times, are going to be those that benefit the most from it. Now, for me, I think that if you are going to make the claim that they are part of this, like this is the working class struggle, right? You should be backing the unions is what they would say. And to that I say, well, there are already people that have far less resources than what these guys have that have been able to exist and have lucrative businesses that exist outside of that structure. And it's not just with acting or Hollywood, these entertainment structures that exist. We kind of have our own thing going on, and we've been wildly successful doing it. I'm not the only one, right? That's not, see, people want to always make their problems someone else's issues. And it's not, because we're not playing by the same rules. Like this guy asked me if my employees were unionized, and I'm like, no, they're not. They don't need to be. For what? For what reason would they have to be unionized? I recognize, and that's the funny thing, because this is what y'all are complaining about, right? Bosses being able to give you more preferential treatment, I guess. That's not a problem over here. I make sure my employees are taken care of. You might hate me all you want, but notice one thing that you've not heard from my employees. They bitching and moaning about, let's say, something as simple as pay. You haven't heard that. You know why? Because I make sure they're taken care of. They wear it on their sleeve that they work for us. They don't treat it like it's just another gig. Why? Because I make sure they're taken care of. But it does go both ways. And that I understand that not every, I don't know where this myth came from that like workers and people that work are automatically in this like good position, right? And they can't really do any wrong. And as someone that has managed people, you should know, if you have managed people, to be fair, this is a communist and they don't work like that. You understand that some people suck. Okay. Now I happen to have a bunch of rock star employees as well. And it's one of those things, we take care of each other. I make sure they're taken care of financially. I make sure the work environment is as good as it can realistically be. It is a job at the end of the day. I don't overwork these guys. I take care of them. Right? So we exist outside of that. But this is what I'm telling you fools to do instead of. And it's funny, he just looks at it, one communist looks at it like, oh, well, I'm a boss, and therefore I'm against the working class. First of all, I don't know what these guys are thinking here. But this is what I'm asking of you all, to do what I did. Yeah, it requires risk. I spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on my own money, but y'all, definitely these actors and stuff, they make way more than that. Not maybe the lower ones, but they're making way more than that. And they're pulling your resources together that you can make that. You can make that happen. Now, I made it happen. And we exist outside the general status quo. How we do everything from distribution on up and down is not like the vast majority of the industry right now. And the economic problems that I found to plague the industry, I've corrected within like by leading by example. And that's all I'm asking that these actors and actresses do and the writers do. That's all I'm asking, but they won't do it. It always becomes an excuse. And I'm like, well, in this day and age, there should be no excuses. And if you are making an excuse to why it can't happen, the way that I see it is that you're proving to me that this is more about protecting the status quo. This isn't the rich guy versus the poor guy. This isn't this that class versus that class, which you're trying to tie that struggle. It's more of a match made in hell where you guys need each other, and it's just a big protection of the status quo. This is why I said the biggest protectors of these mega corporations are the unions. They're trying to ensure that they stay afloat in the same capacity that they were. They're just begging for crumbs. That's all that this is. That's all this ever was. Don't forget to check out my comic book company over at Rippaverse.com. After 2 multi-million-dollar campaigns, you can still get ISOM #1 and #2. Up next this fall is Alpha Core #1, written by one of the most prolific writers of all time, Chuck Dixon, and penciled by Joe Bennett. And if you can't wait for new content, go to our website right now and pre-order the first official Rippaverse hoodie. Y'all be easy.